Happy Tuesday morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Crime in the Courtroom. Today is August 19th. I'm John Collins, your host, and I'm really excited to welcome you to a special edition of Crime in the Courtroom. Had an opportunity recently to speak with three very close colleagues and dear friends of mine. Pam Marshall, Director of Forensic Science and Professor of Forensic Science and Law at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. Julie Sikorsky, Forensic Biology Unit Manager at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in Palm Beach County, Florida, and also a current member of the Board of Directors of the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors. And Ray Wickenheiser, retired director of the Forensic Science System for the New York State Police, also former president of the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors. Um, the four of us, including yours truly, have recently announced, and the purpose of our conversation, which I have the pleasure of letting you in on, we recently announced the formation of a leadership, I guess what we might call influencer group and curriculum development group and workshop delivery group dedicated to advancing leadership practices within the forensic DNA community. And as we talked about, we've been working together for quite some time, doing workshops and touching on a variety of different leadership topics that are important to the administration of forensic science laboratories and important to the administration of forensic DNA or forensic biology units in crime laboratories around the country, both public and private. And so what we did recently in this conversation was just kind of kick around issues and topics that are of important to us individually, share some thoughts with you about what is going on in forensic science and some of the more critical leadership topics that laboratory and forensic biology unit administrators are dealing with on a regular basis. But I also want to mention that you're going to hear us talking about a special program that we are going to be doing at the upcoming International Symposium on Human Identification, which is going to be on November 3rd. Let me check my calendar here. November 3rd to the 6th in Palm Beach County, Florida. That's November 3rd to the 6th, 2025 in Palm Beach County, Florida. And on Monday of the symposium, which is November 3rd, as you're going to hear us talk about in our conversation, the four of us are going to be participating in one-on-one coaching sessions with you, participants, attendees of the International Symposium on Human Identification. This is the first time that we're doing this as a group. And so what we have already are a quickly growing number of individuals that are going to be attending our leadership workshop, which we will be talking about, which is going to be on the Thursday afternoon of the symposium. But ahead of that, on Monday, November 3rd, the four of us are going to be setting up one-on-one coaching sessions with the participants of our workshop, as well as other attendees that will be at the symposium. We are going to give preference to the attendees of our workshop, but as time permits, we're also going to provide one-on-one coaching, mentorship sessions with anybody that might be interested. Sessions, I imagine, will go about 15 to 30 minutes at the most, so that we have enough time to help as many people as we can. So you will hear us discuss this in our conversation coming up here in just a second. But in the meantime, what I would like to mention to you is that if you will be attending the International Symposium on Human Identification, and if you need more information on that, go to ishinews.com, ISHINEWS.com. And if you are interested in a one-on-one coaching session with any one of us, please email me directly at office@criticalvictories.com. That's office@criticalvictories.com. And what I would like you to do is simply give me your name, your affiliation, what laboratory you come from, and what particular topic is important to you or you think that you might like to speak with us about. And what we will do is we're going to take that feedback, get that information, and then we will reach out back out to you to actually set up appointments with you. And we may also reach out to see if there's any one of us that might be particularly helpful to you, depending on the opportunity that you face or the challenge that you face. So look forward to hearing from you on that. Please, again, email me directly at office@criticalvictories.com, and I will make sure that we get you set up in a coaching session. And again, that is as time allows. And and we've only got Monday to do this. So please email me as soon as you can. If you have any questions, you can phone me directly at my office at 517-803-4063. Please leave me a message and I will call you right back. So without further ado, I'm really excited to be able to welcome you into an interesting conversation that I had with these three very important people, not only to me personally and professionally, but also to the forensic science community. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks again. Oh, it's good to see you all.
Good
Good
to
to see
see you.
everybody.
We've been looking forward to this. We tried to make this happen earlier, but scheduling's always a challenge.
It
Um,
sure is.
so I I want to start off. I have a perfect story to kick off this conversation. It's only going to take me a minute to tell. And then we'll get into talking about the Forensic Leadership Academy and this kind. So this is a story I was going to tell you anyway, so I might as well tell you now. So my son is 26 years old. He had a job interview this morning. And I think, as the three of you know, he has really serious disability. He's considered autistic, but it's a different form of not that there's a typical autism, but his presentation of the disorder is pretty unique. But he doesn't he has some pretty serious cognitive and communication problems, but he can speak pretty fluently, and he doesn't have any behavioral disorders, so he's employable. So there's this agency that helps employ people with disabilities. So I pick him up at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm dressed like this. I've got, my coat, my shirt, slacks, and black socks and black loafers on. So I pick him up, and he's all ready. He's wearing this nice kind of green shirt and slacks, and he jumps in the car. And so we have to park on a parking deck, and then we got maybe about a quarter mile to get to the site of the interview. We're in my car, and I park, and I look down, and I see that he's wearing like beach flip-flops that that look like they were worn at Woodstock in '69 and probably smell like it too. And I'm like, Kevin, I'm like, oh man, you're supposed to wear shoes. And so we're sitting there. I'm like, well, I'm like, I'll tell you what, here, so I take my shoes and socks off, and we have the same size feet. So he puts on my shoes and socks. I put on these flip-flops. I'm wearing this.
Uh-huh.
Now we got a quarter mile to walk, and we're both walking like ducks because these flip-flops are uncomfortable. He doesn't like my shoes. It was so funny. Like I was thinking to myself, if somebody recorded this, they'd be in tears. I know the three of you would have been.
Yeah.
So anyway, he got the job. We were all excited.
Oh,
Oh,
And
wonderful.
yeah, so it's working at a cafeteria at a university, so just kind of helping with cleaning up. Oh, anyway, the reason I knew you'd get a kick out of that story, picturing me in these flip-flops. But the thing that was interesting, I was thinking about it ahead of our conversation, is that the hiring manager is really like in a unique position because she has other individuals with different kinds of deficits and disabilities. And when you think about what her responsibilities are, that her job is to create an experience for these young people that have these disabilities and to create the conditions where she can get the most contributions out of them, given whatever strengths and talents and abilities that they have, taking into account whatever disabilities and deficits they have. In other words, I have this human being that has some ability that can help our team, and we're going to try to create the conditions where these individuals can contribute. And I'm thinking to myself, that's what leadership is. Like that
mm-hmm.
that's that is that's why this whole subject is so important to us as a team. And the four of us have been working together. And I announced on my last episode that we are going to be talking about the Forensic Leadership Alliance that we created in affiliation with Promega and the International Symposium on Human Identification. And so, what we're going to be, we all agreed that we would do today is just kind of talk about this subject that is important to all of us. I was curious who amongst the, I know it's not going to be me, but amongst the four of us, who was the first to ever go to the ISHI Symposium, or what used to be called Promega? It was just called the Promega Symposium. Like, do you,
I think it's Ray.
Ray, were
So
you the first? When did you go?
Mhm. Because I'm old, and
I
you've
was gonna say, I'm glad you said it.
you too.
He's retired. It only makes sense.
I went in
Yeah.
1999, and part of it was only 99 because I was around in the early 80s, but because I was in Canada at the time, only two people could go every year, so it was very minimal, and I was just fortunate enough to go in 99.
How
So
many how many people were there? Do you remember?
oh, it was huge because I naively put in, did not knowing the size of the conference, and there was 800 people, and it was far and away the largest group I'd ever spoken in front of. So it was 800 in that.
Wow.
It was that big, yeah. I counted the
Wow.
chairs because, real quick story, I was in a workshop, and it was with Ranajit Chakraborty on statistics of DNA. And it was packed, and there was about 200, 250 people. And I remarked to a colleague, like, I'm speaking, like, this is huge. And he said, you think this is a symposium? This is just a workshop. Behind those huge double doors over there, that's the room. And I went in and had a look, and there was two huge screens, and I gasped and I counted the chairs, and it was over 800 chairs, and it was pretty full. So
That's impressive. So this, and then I don't know the first time that they did this symposium when it, because I remember when I was a laboratory director that my DNA people would say, hey, can we get funding to go to Promega? That's how they would describe it, that we want to go to Promega. It's like, well, yeah, so I would always approve it because I knew that it was the major DNA conference and I wanted my people there. But I don't know the first one that they did, but I know it goes back um,
Yeah.
quite a
Well, they
ways.
celebrated 35 years last year. So this is
Mhm.
36 this year. So what is
Oh,
that,
okay.
1989?
Oh, that sounds about so that's early on. That's like in terms of when forensic DNA typing was coming on board.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Pam, when was the first time you went?
It was in the 2000s. I can't remember if it was 2002 or a little bit later when I started my
Yeah.
PhD.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's the largest DNA conference in the world,
Mhm.
or dedicated to forensic DNA. And Promega organizes the conference, and we all have a great relationship with the folks at Promega. But I was curious, who wants to take a stab at sort of explaining the how we first sort of came together to start? Oh, Julie's got her hand up. Yeah, Ju Julie, Julie,
I'm shy.
we're gonna sit back and just let you take over from here. So, yeah, so go ahead. When did we first start working together, the four of us?
The four of us. Okay.
Or
So,
however you want to explain the history of this.
the history of this actually, I believe it started in Palm Springs. And I was introduced, so I was a super Ray Wickenheiser fan. No one wanted to talk to him because he was so intimidating, isn't he? He's unapproachable, which is
He
sweet.
still is. I
He's
mean,
like, um, so Jody Hines Clan, I knew her. I had met her when I went out to Orange County District Attorney's Office to look at their rapid instrumentation, and she knew Pam. And so I met Pam, and then somehow we found ourselves talking. It was either at a showcase or a
Mhm.
workshop or something. And Ray was there, and we kind of started spitballing about the need for leadership training for DNA analysts, for technical leaders, for managers. I had been a manager in a DNA unit for several years at that point. And so we started talking, and a lot of times these conversations they don't really get any traction. Well, I went back. I was like, this is we're going to do this. We're going to do this. So I started recruiting people, and that first conference that we had, which oh wait, then there was COVID. Sorry, there was that. So we had gotten a group together. We had submitted an abstract to present. I forget where it was supposed to be in 2020. And they asked us if we wanted to do it virtually, and we kind of said no. But I chaired that first conference, and we had a ton of speakers. There were six of us because George Skiro and Angie Vassilotti were also part of that team.
Yeah.
And we presented the following year at ISHI in Orlando. That was our first get together. And then John, you put it together, I think the following year, is that right? And like really distilled this down into the core group of, academic, DNA manager, lab manager, coach, like it really like put in all the pieces to kind of
I
bring
remember,
something
yeah,
together.
I remember thinking, and that first event that we did where we had, some other folks that were joining us, the feedback that we got on that was outstanding. But I remember from my perspective that I felt like as you start to get more than four people, you don't really get the chance to really kind of sink your teeth into the subject matter.
Yep.
And so it was a matter of just having more time as a speaker. And so we kind of felt like four was a good number. And we all have forensic laboratory experience and unique perspectives on leadership. And so it went from there. And it's been a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
Pam, I've always felt like you bring a really critical perspective on the academic side because you worked in forensic labs. You're a professor at Duquesne University. You've got an outstanding forensic program there that I know you're very proud of, and you're proud of your students. But I've always kind of felt that your perspective is unique for a number of reasons. One of which is that you're sending your students into these organizations, and I'm sure you would prefer that your students work with people that actually have some leadership competencies, unless I'm wrong about that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That and just acknowledging that our students are stakeholders too, right? So really being aware of how much our students can bring to the table in conversations about where they want the future of forensic science to go as well.
Hmm. Yeah. About how many students do you have in your program right now?
150.
Wow.
Holy
So we've got
man,
we've got
that's
30 new
big.
freshmen. It's very big, yeah,
So
growing and
so
very excited.
that's a baccalaureate program because I know you then have the master's program, right? Or what is that actually, the 150
The 150 is the total across the 4+1.
total? Okay.
hmm
Okay.
So we have, I think, 15 master's students this upcoming year. So they'll
Okay.
be ready for jobs in May.
That's great. So, Ray, I was hoping we could lean on you a little bit, being the old guy, as you said, and so intimidating that you were pretty instrumental in sort of taking this from a concept, this team of ours, giving it a name, and then how we were going to move forward. Why don't I was thinking maybe you could sort of tell us about about our group, what our goal is, and also, what Promega is hoping that we can deliver for their attendees at the symposium.
Sure. That's a great question. I think it started with, is there a need, right? And I think when we first started talking about it, because you always bounce ideas, and when you have sort of a purpose and interest and a capability when it starts to meet a need. And I remember when we had done this really organically for the first few years, and it was always a lot of fun. And we sort of worked our way around from different kind of concepts or pieces of leadership. And at some point, I think it came to a head where do we go from here? And what I felt myself was, well, one, the need has not only not gone away, but it's gone even greater. And then I think part of it is we had enough experience and momentum that we're sort of starting to develop something that, and I hate to sort of call it a brand, but something where you start to say, here's what we need a little bit more structure. And I think that was the natural kind of part of the conversation that got to what's the next step here? Well, we're doing this at ISHI. DNA is becoming, not just it is a thing, but it's becoming even a greater thing. It's growing, and now you have new aspects with FIG, and here comes rapid. So it's really becoming even larger. So the need is getting bigger, but because we're always being associated with ISHI, and obviously Promega's, the huge player in that, it just to me was a natural thing. Let's start that conversation, not only between the four of us, but including Promega, to say, let's bring in the resources and really brainstorm and sort of take it to the next level of what we feel this wants to be or where we want it to go. And for me, that was really exciting because one, I really enjoy the working with you all because I always come away with more than I bring in. I feel I'm humbled to be part of the group, but it's also when you bring in the resources of what Promega, only sort of Promega can bring with this conference, you get an even bigger application of what are the ideas, what are the things to kind of reach out to people and really try to meet the need in kind of new and innovative ideas. So I think for me, that's kind of it in a nutshell, but really fun to be part of.
Because we've been doing, like Julie said, we've been doing workshops together. And you're right, Julie. I was thinking about that. Like it was right around the time of the pandemic that this all sort of started. I had done a couple workshops for them before the pandemic, and so I had sort of started to build my relationship with them. But it was so much more fun. I mean, always enjoy doing workshops, but it was so much more fun doing it as part of the team. And the other thing that we should mention is that our team will continue to do these events at ISHI, and we'll just see how that evolves and what our relationship to the symposium and its organizers, how that evolves. But one of the cool things that we also do, and I'll have one of you talk about this, that we also coach and mentor as part of this. So it's not just training, because I've come to the conclusion, and we've talked about this, I don't think you can train people to be leaders. I've learned that what you can do is you can teach people to be the most effective individuals they can be in their responsibilities, and then their people perceive the leadership. But you really, when you're teaching people how to be effective leaders, really what you're doing is you're teaching them how to be the best people they can be in the responsibilities that they have. And so when you add coaching and mentoring to that, and I know that, like, I know I'm a professional coach, but all four of us, when we do these events, have the opportunity to sit and talk, with people one-on-one. I remember you all probably remember this. I had an opportunity to sit down and do I think it was like a 1-hour coaching session with an officer in the Iraqi army who came to the meeting to be in our workshop. That was so cool. So I think that's one of the great things about our group. Anybody have any thoughts on that coaching piece or the mentorship? Julie, you spoke about mentorship at one point, or is that the one that's coming up?
That was last
That was
last
the
year.
last one. Yeah.
That was and it was really well received, because I think there's a perception of what mentorship is, and it isn't always what people think it is. I think I don't know, it's like having therapy. You lay on a couch and you talk back and forth. That's not what mentorship actually needs to be. It can take on many forms, and it can be accessible to all different people. Like right now, I'm mentoring an individual from another laboratory that happened to approach me from that last workshop. And our mentoring relationship is less formal. We simply have conversations, and she's a brand new leader. She actually, during our mentor-mentee relationship, she got a new job. She was not a manager. She was preparing, and then she became a manager during our relationship. So there's so many opportunities, I think, for the FLA to just make management and leadership more accessible to individuals, because I feel like you put it on a pedestal, and really, to echo what you've said, John, it's becoming a better version of yourself through self-awareness, through learning about how you respond to stress and how to be that better version of yourself, and really to step back and see how others are perceiving you, and do you inspire that trust and confidence, and if not, how do you modify to do that, and try to be accessible again. there's just,
Yeah.
and the coaching piece comes in that. Also learning. I mean, I think we all like to learn and we all like to get those tools that we can apply. And there isn't one size fits all. There isn't one tool that's going to make this any easier because it's a hard thing to do. But there's certainly the the ability or the willingness of our attendees to come to these conferences and these workshops shows that they're vested in creating a better future for themselves and for their laboratories.
Yeah. Pam, Ray, any comments on that?
Yeah, I'll go next. I think the mentor relationship is probably one of the most important in your career. And I think it's not a one size fits all, right? So you're going to have a number of mentors either over the length of your career. You can have several people who might fit different needs at a given time. But I think we've been mentors probably our entire lives, just growing up. And you think of the relationships that you start to grow in high school and college. And to me, it's always been, helping someone get to where they want to be. You may not realize that you're serving in that mentor capacity at the time, but I guarantee that all of these people who start out, in this little ball as scientists, right? We all have it in us to offer advice. We all have those different life experiences that are going to help the next person who's going through something similar grow. And so it's really just kind of being vulnerable and knowing that other people can assist you in that process and that you're not this person working in a vacuum. And I think our training has really shown that, knowing your strengths and what works in your personality. I think those were some of the first workshops that we did is really knowing your DISC personality, your Clifton strengths. I also think it's just as important to know your weaknesses, right? Where are you weak, and where can somebody else help you in that weakness?
It might, I don't know, you might be able to make the point that it's one, maybe the most important thing for you to know. You don't want to dwell on it, right? But if you're not aware of what you just are not, I've often told the story when I came to the Michigan State Police, I'm a strategic thinker in the Clifton Strengths leadership domain, and so I'm very weak in the executing themes, which made sense because I always wanted to surround myself with people. Like, I'm a really creative guy, and I can envision and I can articulate a goal, and I'm pretty good at motivating people to commit to the goal. And but when it comes to the execution and the organizing and scheduling, that's not my strength. And so I always tried to surround myself with people that were better than that, better at that than I was, and then you set them free to do what they do well, and not control them and micromanage them, you know.
Yeah.
But Ray, I know that we've had more than one conversation. I know I've talked to you about this, and we've about a group about some of the challenges just working in law enforcement. What are your thoughts? A lot of people that come to our workshops and that we coach, they work in publicly funded labs that fall in a law enforcement agency. And I'm curious, like, what do you think some of the challenges or opportunities are with regards to mentorship or coaching, especially within a law enforcement environment? Are there any what are some of the unique challenges that you see?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. So when you think of, to me, what coaching or mentorship is, it's sort of like that time machine. Let me talk to myself with 5 or 10 or 15 years more of experience. And I love forensic science because inherently we're not competing with each other. We're really helping each other. So the idea that if you could talk to yourself with that 10 or 20 years of experience, like the things that you would know. And I think that law enforcement and that sworn, non-sworn, it is a perfect kind of example of how that could really help you. The idea that, how do we learn things? Well, we learn things through actually doing them experience. And that's why that coach thing is so great because, as a coach on the sidelines, I'm not out there playing the game for the players, but you can see, and hopefully they're self-aware to say, well, I'm not that great on defense. Will you try to put them at forward? But in the law enforcement environment, there's a lot of things that we think just aren't doable. That's the framework of just the way it is. However, the older self or that mentor or coach could say, hey, here's the experience that I gained, that here's how you can deal with that. And frankly, a lot of the things that we can do, we really have to advocate for. We really have to build it. We build the relationships, but there's a sort of almost like a special how-to formula where you are a non-sworn or civilian working within that law enforcement, and there's a lot of things that you can learn that can be very effective in how you can well advocate for your people and build upon the success, because we have fantastic technology, but as we know, the technology is getting greater and greater in demands all the time, and being able to work with somebody to assist you in reflecting, here's how we can do any better. Here's how to make a case that will resonate not only with your scientific staff, but with the law enforcement staff, because even though we're on the same team, we see the world a little bit differently. And I think it's just such a benefit to take people from have different experiences or more experience and sort of blend that with our own to come up with a formula. And I do want to kind of make a quick point of one of the things that we felt as a group we could even sort of better serve the community was in that one-to-one. We do, I think, great in workshops. We have great conversations, but then sort of being there for those one-to-one conversations just sort of gives it that extra value added, because a lot of the challenges we have in labs are very specific to us. And that's what the mentoring piece can really bring.
Yeah, you know, and when you think about these one-on-one sessions, I'm not sure what the experience that the three of you had in sort of the one-on-one interactions with our attendees. I know for me, and this also applies to my actual, professional coaching sessions that I do on a regular basis. The number one topic that coaching clients want to talk about is their relationship with their manager, their supervisor, their boss, whatever you want to describe it. And and I know that there was one client that I had. This goes back quite a while, that really had a profound impact on me. All my clients have an impact on me, but this one in particular really, like, I spent a lot of time thinking about this particular coaching session. But she said to me, she says, she was explaining to me all these challenges that she was having with her, let's just say her manager. And she says, John, I don't get it. He attends all your workshops. Like he's been to your leadership workshops. He's seen you speak at but he doesn't manage in the way that, that you're teaching. And that like really had an impact on me. And I asked myself, why is that? And I think the reason is, and I've talked to some colleagues about this too, is that as a person in a position of influence, as a leader, a manager, whatever term we want to use, you have an aim, right? You have intentions. And everything that you do, everything that you say, and all of the decisions that you're going to make are going to be aligned with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. What I would argue is that the problem that that a lot of people have in management positions is they don't include as part of their goal the confidence of their people. In other words, it never occurs to them, it's not just about me telling people what to do, or, mentoring people or coaching people or making sure they're doing the job right. But I actually want them to have their confidence go up because I am their manager. And they don't think about that. And I feel like that is what a lot of managers have the biggest challenge with. And maybe we all do. Even the best managers struggle with this from time to time. But I don't think we can ever forget that, it's when you're leading people, you have to be thinking about and sensitive to the experience that you're creating for people, just like we talked about it, like with my son. But I don't know. I'd be curious, like, there are to get your opinion on this, there's so many books out there on leadership. There's so many workshops you can take, and you can get hire coaches, and you can see all these cute little leadership memes on social media and LinkedIn. Like everybody's a leadership expert these days. So why are there so many leadership problems? Because the data is horrible across the workforce right now. That Gallup just did a study. It's like the number of people in the workforce that said that they are strong. What was it? They are strongly they strongly trust their leaders was like at 20%.
Hmm.
Where do you think what is broken?
Well,
Uh,
to your point, sorry.
Go,
To your
Pam,
point
go.
about the person that, attends the workshops, attends your speaking, when you're in that time and space, it's going to seem really easy, but then you're going to have to go back to your office and confront, you've got these existing relationships where they maybe haven't seen you in that light, and change is very hard for people, right? And so it's going to take an honest rebuilding. So it might just be an area where there's that pause, right? Yes, I've learned all of these great things. I want to create that change. I want to create that change for the people that are working with me. But then that's going to be hard too, because you're gonna have to fix some things that are broken and have some honest conversations that, I haven't been doing this right. I want to repair. I want to have these honest communications with you. And that's what's really hard, is putting all of that into effect with what you've just learned. And I think that that's really hard for people. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how you're communicating with your people too, right? And sometimes we can't be as transparent as we want about the decisions that we're making, but you can say that, right? You can say, look, I can't tell you all the reasons that we're doing XYZ, but I can tell you that I'm telling you as much as possible, so that, I'm trying to build that communication and transparency in that relationship.
That is such great advice, because there's going to be people even listening and watching us here that they might be struggling as managers, and you're so right that that one of the best things that you can do is to say, look, this is what I'm trying to do, but I feel like I'm falling short. So let's I want your help. Like what do you think I should be aiming at as your manager or as a supervisor? And then how can I be better at making sure I'm accomplishing that goal? Because at least you're humanizing yourself, and you're giving your employee or your the people that you're leading an opportunity to shape you as a manager. And I think that helps build trust. That's great advice. Julie, I think you had, yeah.
Yeah, so all of that, have all of these things written down, that exactly what you were saying about the communication piece. And I think maybe not what's broken, but what's really difficult about managing is embracing that vulnerability. The willingness to self-identify and be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not doing well at this, or I could be better at this. And that is really hard for so many people, especially because we've been taught as a culture that a manager or a supervisor or a boss is supposed to be the one with all the answers. And to come in and basically admit that, you've been doing this all wrong, or you now have to make that change, and you have to create a culture where they're going to see you in a different light. I mean, I'm not surprised that employees are skeptical. I mean, half my staff, I go to a meeting, I come back, I'm all jazzed about something, and they're like, "Oh Lord, what's going to happen now?" And there's that fear about, okay, they're going to come back, but is it going to be sustainable change? And you kind of have to create some check-in points for yourself. If you really want to sustain that change, you really want to make your culture one that is more communicative, and more vulnerable, where you're like, I don't have all the answers. But one thing I have learned is I sometimes get so busy in my own head trying to accomplish and keep the pressures away from the rest of the staff. They kind of don't know what I'm doing. And when you lose that connection, there is some, I wouldn't say distrust, but there's that unsatisfaction because they want to feel like they belong to you, that they matter to you. So you need to, I just say, let them know what you're dealing with along the way. They may not have to be part of that decision-making process, but if you let them know, kind of what your expectations are for yourself or what that aim or that intention is, they can maybe help you understand why you're asking them to do something that might not make much sense to them, or ask for their opinions. So it's kind of involving them in your day to day. They might not be making those decisions, but you're sharing those challenges and making them a part so they have more ownership over what it is you're doing. So I mean, I certainly cannot lead or manage this lab on my own. I am so glad I have a team of people who care enough to offer that, but that was hard to build,
Yeah.
and you have to continue to inspire that trust.
You just made me think too that you sometimes have these moments where you may have an individual employee that as a manager you're really trying to be intentional about boosting their confidence up and just letting them know how much they matter and so forth and it's interesting, like you can kind of see in their eyes that they really don't believe it, that
Mhm.
for whatever reason they really don't believe that they matter, and they really don't they don't believe that um that they're capable of what you're asking them to do. And that can be one of those moments where you really earn your stripes, or your money, I should say, as a manager, when when you're trying to convince an employee that, you know what, like you really matter to this team. You matter, the decisions you make, the words that you use, the way that you interact with your team members, it really affects our ability to do our job. And that's a tough one. So you're spot on, Julie. Ray, what's your advice to people that are sort of struggling as leaders and kind of trying to get their sea legs?
Yeah, for me, balance is probably the biggest thing, and recognizing that when things are going wrong or there's a lot of pressure, there's kind of a move to sort of, you try to control things and you try to do a lot of things perhaps yourself. You take it on, you feel responsible. I love what Julie and Pam and you were saying about the team and how you really have to distribute that and build confidence in all of your team, because you need all of their skills. But you can understand where, if you don't trust what they're doing and you don't give them kind of a producible unit that they can get their hands around and actually make it their own and do something with it, and you're not in there sort of like every step of the way, you can see where that just, I hear you saying it, but I'm not really believing it because I don't feel it. I'm not getting the delegation of that piece where I can do it and be proud of it and build this thing, and certainly get some help along the way, but help as opposed to you're doing it for me or you're over directing me. So it's very hard when you're kind of in this high pressure environment to give meaningful pieces of work to people, trust them to do it, empower them to do it, support them, and find that balance where you're checking in and you're helping, but you're not doing it for them. And when you've got people that are newer, that's a challenge to do, and particularly when they're just learning. But that's that, knowing the people and having that open communication where you're building that capability. And it starts right from Pam and the students at the university, that they're coming out as capable people, and that we do have systems in place, and you're finding that balance because they have a balance of how much they want to check in with you, and then you're juggling all of these balls yourself. But it does take time, but it's just having that open communication and developing a relationship so that you can find what their balance is and what your balance is. And I think for me, that's really a challenge with people, because I'll speak for myself. When you're a sciencey person, you're analytical, and perhaps you're not as high on the personality, the soft skills. And it's something that in personal awareness, you just have to know, I have to sort of check in a little more than I would like to. And just an email isn't going to do it. I actually have to see a face, and I actually, talk about a little something social before I dive into the topic. So I feel there's a lot of those pieces, and just this talking about it and particularly in the workshop and mentoring, can really bring a little bit of self-awareness so you can know what you need to shore up a little bit, and sometimes when you do have to back off a little bit.
Yeah. We did I don't remember when it was that we did this. We did the Clifton Strengths Assessment, right? It was part of one of the workshops. And I know, so I'm a strategic thinker. Ray, I remember as a strategic thinker. Julie, you're an executor, but you've got the relator woo combination at the top,
Yep.
right? And then
Yep.
Pam, were you a relationship builder or a strategic thinker?
I think I
If
was
you
close on both.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think
If you
I
don't
was pretty
remember, that's
close on
okay
both.
because we haven't talked about it in a while. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was that was really interesting to kind of get to get this. So for those that are listening, there's four leadership domains: strategic thinking, relationship building, executing, and influencing. And it's and when you understand that, you can understand what unique talents you show up with in different kinds of situations. One of the workshops that I remember that we did, we kept using we were using clay as an analogy. Do you remember that?
Yep.
That was somewhat recently, wasn't it? One of the recent
Two workshops ago.
was it?
I think it was
Yeah.
two.
And
Because last year was building the forensic science pipeline, and then the year before that was
yes,
modeling the clay. Yeah, I like the themes, so I think you guys tolerate
Julie's
my love of themes.
Julie's our theme person. Pam, I have a question for you. This goes to something you actually said at the start of the call that when we use the clay analogy, what we were trying to reinforce was all these different ways that we take our people early on in their careers, and our goal is to shape them into what they become. And you made a comment earlier to this point about, with young people at the university level, and this certainly would apply to people when they are in the early years of their, well, not just years, the early weeks and months of their careers too, is there's a challenge with striking the balance between respecting what young people bring to the table, but also appreciating that we don't want them to stay clay their whole lives. Like we want them to become beautiful pottery, right? And that I've always, even when I was teaching some university classes, I always found that difficult. That you want people, you want your young people to have confidence, you want them to think, but you don't want them to think, because we know I would not want 20-year-old John Collins making decisions for anybody. Like, thank God that, right? But Pam, how do you strike that balance?
It's difficult. One of my first lectures I usually do with my freshmen, I actually use the title, Every Contact Leaves a Trace, which, as we know, in the forensic arena is the basis of forensic science, right? But I also use it as just a piece to say, literally every person you come into contact with, whether that person's a good person for you or a bad person for you, is going to help shape you. So those relationships that may not end up working out, your roommate in your dorm, that negative relationship is helping you in some aspect too, right? So we really truly are this amalgamation of every experience, every person that's kind of shaped our belief system, our thoughts, how we are going to do things. And so I really try and implore my students that even though they think they know everything when they come, to really take everything that their professors can give them, all the experiences on campus, every opportunity. We have really great speakers that come to campus, and I hate to dangle an extra credit carrot when they come, right? Like, they should be exposing themselves to all of those opportunities, just knowing that that's going to help shape them into really truly becoming the next generation forensic scientists.
When you think back over the years that we've worked together, I don't think that there's an exception to this. We've always done a pre-event questionnaire that we send out to the attendees, right? And we gauge their input about whatever topic that we're going to be sort of focusing on in the workshop. And we've always found that useful because it prepares us as facilitators to have some really interesting discussions, particularly at the tail end of the event, at the end of the day, when we kind of open it up and you get people talking about, okay, what's going on in your lab, what's going on in your organization, right? And that's kind of where the gold is, because then they learn from each other. The question that I have for you, because and then we'll get into talking a little bit about our workshop this coming November, but what is your recollection, or I should say, what is your current understanding of what the major leadership issues are right now, not only within the DNA laboratory environment, but just in forensic science in general? Like, what are some of the things that are keeping lab directors and supervisors awake at night? What are they spending their energy on? I know that leadership succession planning comes up a lot, is making sure you have leaders in the pipeline. But there's others. There's a lot of really interesting issues that come up. What are your thoughts on that? That the leadership issues that our students are really focusing on.
Oh, is that one for Ray or is that for Julie or me?
Pam, since you spoke up, I'm going to let you do it.
Oh. Well, I can't speak from the lab perspective. I think from the student and parent angle, there's a lot of fear about employment, just because what we're seeing at the federal landscape, and whether or not they're truly going to be able to find that position. I will let Ray and Julie talk more on like the things that are keeping them up at night.
So I guess from a director perspective, it was almost always resources, then resources, then resources, because and you'd almost like move your pain points around, because we were so successful, it took a long time to get people, and then when we got the people, eventually we ran out of space, and then we had to work on where are you going to put all these people, and then balancing the number of instruments, examination rooms, and that kind of thing. So we're really kind of almost like moving the bottleneck around. And it seemed like we always had an abundance of cases. And there's almost this sort of underlying, well, when we get to this point, are we going to have too many people? Guess what? We ever got to the point that we ever had too many people, because there was always a new way of doing things, new technology. And the irony is, every new technology, and I'm going to throw rapid in there too. Oh, this is going to take away jobs. No, it's not. Not only is it not going to take away jobs, it's going to require even more people and experience. And then unfortunately, it always weighs on the people, because if you're looking for somebody who's going to head up this program, you're not going to put a junior person in there. It's that senior person that loops back to that succession, and basically why you have to be continuously building your people, because the John who was 20 might not be ready to run that rapid DNA program, but the 20-year-old John with 10 years of good quality, or even 5 years of good quality experience, maybe they're ready to take on either that or being part of that team. And really, that to me is a perfect analogy of what we have to do. I was 20-year-old Ray at some point in time, and not worthy of doing a heck of a lot, to eventually somebody built me up that I was trustworthy enough that the place didn't explode, under my watch. So I think to me, that's that great analogy of we have to build people, because we have no other choice. We have to build the trust, and we learn as human beings by doing things. By doing them, we learn more from mistakes than when things go right. So but how do we do that in such a way that the mistakes are survivable, that they're minor, that we can improve from them?
You and I had similar positions in forensic sciences. Ray, you were in charge of the New York State Police lab system. I was in charge of the Michigan State Police lab system. And I always remember, I always enjoyed watching you talk about the way that you engage your superiors, your organizational superiors in that effort to advocate for your laboratory. There's an artistry to it. and there's and your own personality and your own mindset and your attitude affects how you show up in those discussions and in those negotiations, which is affected by things like strengths and personality and stuff. So uh, there's the resource issue, as you said, but then there's also how you show up to advocate for those resources, because that matters just as much too. Julie, how about you? Things that you remember as far as like top. Well, I should say you're a newly elected member of the ASCLD Board of Directors, the American Society of Crime Lab Directors. So you have the best vantage point of all of us. So I'll let you take the next half hour.
Yeah, right now the focus is the funding issues. That is going to be the biggest challenge I think facing crime labs right now. Specifically, there is going to be funding, but when is it going to be released? And for me, I mean, I have people's salaries tied to that funding. And what do you do if you do as well? So I think that's what is keeping a lot of people up at night. Not, I represent the DNA unit here, and so I have those worries. But I think that that's across the board. Every single grant is like that with those funding challenges. So I think that's at the top of everybody's mind right now, but it's certainly not the only thing because there are technologies that are being implemented that come with their own challenges. Um, what what challenges me right now, I think from a technical standpoint, is there is a few new technologies such as FIG that Ray has mentioned, forensic investigative genetic genealogy, and the rapid implementation. And there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and there are a lot of people that want to get their opinions heard and get some ideas on standards and their opinions on how this should be applied and run. And then labs are kind of left going, what do I actually do with this? And how do I implement it? So I'm not going to do anything. And that's not always a good answer either,
Right.
but what is that path forward? And then being challenged in the court arena on whatever you do is going to be wrong because if you do it one way, you're going to find a dissenting opinion the other way, and you have to figure out and justify what you're doing. So we live in a very complex field. High level resources, I would say, like we're always worried about that, the backlogs. And to me, that has kind of become noise because it's always there. And it's always that, excuse me, that baseline worry that we have. And then we have these extra added things that come and go depending on what the climate is. So
Yeah.
I think that's why our topic for our workshop this year is really appropriate because we're talking about uncertainty.
Yeah. Well, that's
Mhm.
probably a good pivot point for this is that when we were sort of thinking up the topic that we wanted to talk about for this fall or this November. Well, yeah, that's the fall, late
Mhm.
fall. Um, and what just so our viewers and listeners know, that's what is it, November 4th to the 6th? Is that the issue? I
Oh
think
boy,
it's
we should know this.
well, just go to ishinews.com and they can find it.
It's the 3rd through the 6th is
Third
the official dates.
Yeah, third through the sixth. And then our workshop is going to be on that
Yes, the
Thursday
6th.
afternoon, and we're going to be doing some coaching on that Monday. So we'll be working with ProMega. So if anybody's interested, please, we'd love to have you join us for that workshop on Thursday afternoon. But also, Ray and Julie and Pam and I will be making ourselves available for one-on-one mentoring and coaching on that Monday. And so we will be putting out information on how you can schedule appointments with us. And so I know we're all very much looking forward to making those connections with people. However, when we were thinking about the topic itself, what was going on in DC, and I just recorded a podcast episode where we talked about some of this federal funding. I remember seeing Elon Musk with the chainsaw and you knew that that was intentional. He's not a dumb man, and he was trying to maybe intimidate and let people know that we're coming after you. And the problem is, I think that there's a lot of people have different sensibilities when it comes to how the federal government runs, but there's a lot of legitimate federal programs and people that do really good job, and you got to be thoughtful in the way that you make these decisions, and so we were, as a team, we were concerned about the stress level that people have, and so what we came up with was this idea that the world is not coming to an end. That the world is not ending. That we are going to move on. We're going to figure out, as individuals, as organizations, as teams, and and I think it's going to be a fun conversation, and I think it's going to be peppy.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't mean just because it applies to so many different things in what we do. The world is not ending. If you have contamination in your laboratory, the world is not ending. We can get through this. And, I think the applicability of what we're going to cover is very global, within the
Yeah.
laboratory and your management leadership environment, but also I think within your personal environment as well. And I think it all comes down to how you respond to it. And so that'll
Yeah.
be an
It's a great
interesting discussion.
It's a great point. It's not just about the funding. I remember as a laboratory director, one of my darkest days was I had an employee that came to me and told me that they were having a very, very severe family crisis, that they had just learned that their daughter was being sexually abused by another family member.
Mm. Mm.
I, I don't remember learning about that in any of my training classes. Like that was tough. And it's that message you have to tell yourself, this is going to pass. We got to get through this. We got to be thoughtful about it. I don't want to do any harm here, but I want to try to lift this employee up as best I can. Let him or her know that I'm here for full support, and that the world is not ending. However, as the four of us know, the world does expect you to show up,
Hmm.
and you don't
Mhm.
always know. You don't always know when you're going to have to show up in a way that you never had to before, and you don't have the luxury of screwing it up. And in some ways, it's one of the things I love about our business. It's high consequence, and
Yeah, getting you out of your comfort zone and you learn and grow from those situations.
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, the irony is, John, I think a lot of us, and Pam could probably reinforce this, that why do people go into forensic science? Well, you want to make a difference, right? You want to do something that's important. Well, be careful what you wish for, because you're doing something important. People care about it. And when things go wrong, it's a big deal.
yeah,
And the thing is, we talk about this in our lab all the time. It's not if, it's when something is going to go wrong, and you're just going to have to deal with it. But as Julie in our creation of our theme, like, this is absolutely survivable. And the irony is, all of us have gone through it, and it pivots back to that mentorship and coach. No one who is a coach and mentor has not gone through things, just like you were mentioning. You didn't go through it yourself, but your staff member did. But I'm sure there's all kinds of things that in your personal life as a manager, in the lives of the people that you've worked with, you've got that wealth of experience to say, well, you've never had something exactly like this, but there's enough commonalities that you can pull from to say, there's a framework for that. Here's how we deal with it. Here's how you, and it starts with stepping up and being present for your staff. But absolutely, we have a community, and there's absolutely a number of people you can lean on, including in this workshop, to say, here's how we deal with these kinds of things. And then frankly, when you leave ISHI, you have those people and that network of people, the people in the workshop, and us as people who help out, to lean on and give a call and reach out to, because none of us are islands, and we all do better as a team. And that team doesn't stop within your own lab. Certainly those are the people you work with 99% of the time, but you've got the greater team. You've got the team of educators who are developing those students, as people who create workshops, people who create products like Promega, and certainly the team of us. And I love the idea of being present for the week, so we can do that. And is it going to be, Julie, Mentorship Monday? Is that what it's going to be?
I don't know, but what you're speaking of is actually alliance would be a great synonym, which happens to be part of our, because we're an alliance. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but right, that 100%.
you can't teach that ability, Julie. That just comes naturally.
Ability to just Mr. Magoo fall into everything. Yeah.
No, you're speaking the truth, and we're a forensic leadership alliance. I mean, we're all in it together. I think what you're saying is beautiful. I mean,
Yeah, that's a great way.
Mhm.
We're getting close to the end here. I knew the big problem was going to be try to keep this at an hour because when we get on the call, we can like it becomes like our own little workshop. But when I think about what people can expect for those, there's a lot of people that have worked with us, gone through our workshops, and so they know kind of how we operate. But when I think about the way that we function as a team, when we do these workshops and when we mentor, is that I think that anybody that watches us operate in the classroom and would describe us as really, really engaged. We have fun. I think that the four of us are very compassionate in the way that we connect with our students, in the way that we listen to what they share in class, and we're also very encouraging that we want to remind people that you can do this. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But it's an opportunity. So I guess my last question for everybody. I put Pam on the spot last time, so maybe I'll start with Ray this time. But for those that are thinking about joining us for our workshop, um, what do you think they should know about what they're going to experience when they get there, and what it will be like for them to participate in it with us?
Well, I think you said it previously. The first thing is you're going to get a survey, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear what we should focus on. And even though we have a framework, we really want to tailor it to what the needs are of the community. Then as you come to the workshop, be prepared to not only, we're going to present some material to you, but we want to hear about what you think and what the challenges that you're having in the lab. And so we can have that robust discussion, because every workshop is so much better when people are engaged and they're prepared to discuss it. And then enlarge that workshop and take it beyond the actual time of the workshop. Take advantage of the mentorship sessions. And especially if you have a specific issue, come on out and be prepared to discuss it with your colleagues and do that networking, because it's such a great meeting. I always come back energized, but meeting and talking with other folks who have the same challenges that you have at work is, I think, just really invigorating. And knowing you're in it with a bunch of other like-minded folks I find it so helpful.
Yeah, Julie, how about you?
what can they get out of it? Well, there's candy. Usually there's candy, right?
Candy, cookies, and clay.
That's right. Candy, cookies, and clay. You know what? It's an experience. And I want to say that we kind of have a following, which is how this whole thing kind of came together. And, Ray proposed it, but the only way that would have happened is if we hadn't, we had such a great reception for what we were doing, and we were making leadership and management accessible and providing something that people wanted. And kudos to our attendees being vulnerable, but we are being vulnerable and approachable. And I think that that's what makes these workshops so great is we validate the things that you're feeling and experiencing. And we also say we don't have all the answers because we're new to this too. And it was kind of like we have a situation. Okay, I've been in some that are similar. I'm going to feel my way through this. And I think as long as your intentions are good and you're seeking to understand, you really can come through anything. But it is a camaraderie, and I like to think the workshops are fun. I mean, we
They
have a fun
are.
time. Sometimes we dress up, so I mean that's fun. So I like
You had to go there.
I had to. I don't
Yeah.
know what we're doing this year. Oh wait, I do know what I'm doing this year,
We've
but I'm not
got we've got pictures of us with our hard hats. Was that you, Pam, that brought the hard
gonna.
hats
Mhm.
and the
I think so.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right,
The
Pam,
Home Depot apron.
you can close us out on this question, what people can expect.
Safety in numbers, right? So
Mhm.
Julie said, it's that piece about validation and knowing that the same things that you're going through, on whatever scale, somebody else is going through as well. And we do it Vegas style. You come and release whatever you're dealing with, knowing that everybody's going to hold each other accountable, and it's not going to leave that space. And that you can be vulnerable and share, whatever you're going through at the time, because then you're going to be walking away with some skills to deal with that problem. So yeah, safety in numbers. We look forward to seeing everybody, and of course, I look forward to seeing our group.
Yeah. Well,
Vegas
this
style.
it's always a joy working with all of you. We should mention that for those that are looking for more information, you can get information about the symposium and the workshop at ishinews.com, ISHI-NEWS.com. If you want some more information about Promega itself, which is the organizing body for ISHI, it's promega.com, PROMEGA.com. But everything they have at ishinews.com website is really good. So all of the information is there. So it's good seeing all of you, and we're going to be seeing you down in November in Palm Beach, right? Right, Julie, down in your neck of the
Palm
woods.
Beach, my neck of the woods.